Hi. Did you know that I love the Borderlands franchise? I haven't really mentioned it that much on this channel outside of attempting and failing to commit to a Borderlands 3 challenge run, but I absolutely love the series. Borderlands 2 is one of my personal favorite games of all time, and the other mainline games, with one exception, I've played fully and thoroughly enjoyed my time with. And this is not accounting for the sheer amount of hours I put into them, which, yeah, might not be on the level of some other YouTubers that dedicate their entire channel to the series, but for me, these are big numbers. So, why am I telling you this? Well, context mainly. Here, have some more. UVHM in Borderlands 2 is the worst, Borderlands 3 is fun to play, but the story's iffy at best, and Borderlands, the pre-sequel, is weird. And also, Handsome Jack is fucking everywhere, but I got Timothy out of it, so really everything works out in the end. Regardless, the point is, I was going to be playing Borderlands 4 day one, especially since they didn't pull the Epic Game Stores thing this time around like with Borderlands 3. And I wanted to talk about the game itself for a bit as my form of first impressions. I wouldn't necessarily call this a review, because ultimately I think to get a full review experience I need to play the entire game and sit on it for a while, hear what others have to say, what they figured out, etc, etc. So this is just my personal thoughts and opinions and me rambling about mechanics, honestly, so let's just get right into it. First things first, the elephant in the room. I'm very lucky because I had just gotten a new laptop, specifically for the purposes of editing, but it's beefy enough to run bigger games like this. And man, I'm lucky because this game does have some performance issues. What a surprise, a modern AAA game has performance issues on most computers. Who could have possibly guessed? I don't have a Titan rig, but I do have a 4080 and a Ryzen 7, as well as 64 gigabytes of RAM, but I still need to play on low with DLSS on performance, or else the game just doesn't run smoothly at all. Some of the B-roll I have also looks a little crusty, but some of that is whenever I was experimenting with recording the game and tried doing it from my computer, so part of it might look especially crusty, but that one's more on me than the actual game itself. But either way, I do think the game really needs some optimizations. Like, if a relatively decent PC can't even get proper frame rates on the lowest settings, something needs to be done about that. Now, I want to get performance out of the way first, because it's the biggest problem with Borderlands 4 so far, and currently my only real negative about the game. Now, of course, these are the first impressions, so there's no telling if something later on will cause me to just despise the game, but God, is it fun. I want to talk about it a bit, but I'm going to start off with the Vault Hunter characters. For my playthrough, I picked Rafa because he looked the coolest, plus we have a TDR rep now, technically, which is pretty neat. TDR hasn't really had a specific focus, and I'm hoping as I play through the game that they're more involved in some degree, but just having Rafa here is fun enough. And something that I immediately picked up on is that the characters you pick have significantly more involvement with the events than before. I know Gearbox is intending on having them even more involved, and they certainly stuck to it. Your characters talk way more, cutscenes actually show your character doing things physically. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if there are specific dialogue lines for individual characters on a much larger degree compared to the pre-sequel in Borderlands 3. Because they kind of did that, although for the pre-sequel I think it was like one line, maybe a couple. And like, I understand they can't make like huge dialogue like branches depending on who you play, but I still quite like how much more talkative they are, and they feel more like a character, and I can get a better idea of what they're like even from comparatively how little I've gone through the game so far. I want to talk about something slightly spoilery now because this ties into another related thing, but this is just a side mission, don't worry. After I did the down and outbound story mission, there was a side mission called Ready to Blow, where a character mentions a missile that fell down but didn't explode but still beeps. The guy, Orts, likes the missile since those beeps seem like talking, but since it's a missile, the town is like, yeah, so you're called in to look into it. My character, Rafa, immediately talks about the appeal to danger working, and I make my way there, totally staying on course and not getting distracted by a few points of interest along the way. And I was thinking at the time, oh, this is probably going to be some bit about Orts being crazy and this missile being live, as in the exploding kind of live, and some other potential shenanigans to come out and about from it. And, well, the game didn't sucker punch me by the missile having a sentient AI that hasn't been able to communicate with anyone because no one had an Echo 4 with them, and I'm not going to delve too much deeper, but this is a side mission that you can do in the middle of the third story mission. It's not very far in, and it's dialogue back and forth between your Vault Hunter and the missile's AI, and it goes over like a life's purpose, living in uncertainty of your goal and all that. And when I finished it, it really sat with me in terms of what it was about and what it meant, and I'm like, man, this game has fucking writing. It's very much a step up from Borderlands 3, which was iffy at best whenever it comes to writing. I personally wasn't as bothered as some people were, but it absolutely had problems and could have been significantly better. And if a side mission has me feeling something this early on, I really hope that carries through to the main story itself, which I will not talk about too much here because I can't really give a solid opinion on a story I only just begun understanding, but I certainly have high hopes. I won't touch on characters specifically for the same reason too, but first impressions are good. Just don't have them much to elaborate on right this moment. In terms of what I can elaborate on with this game, it's absolutely the gameplay. There's 3 difficulty options and I felt comfortable enough to pick hard, and it's been quite fun. It absolutely does feel like I'm getting my ass kicked, but it's not so extremely difficult that it feels like a yo-yo between standing and fight for your life. And it feels like it builds on what Borderlands 3 has established, especially with their weapons, being familiar to what the Borderlands 3 experience was like, but throwing in some newer tools and some wilder options. There are some overall changes to some weapons. For example, Maliwan doesn't have its own charge mechanic anymore, you just fire the gun, thank god. Torque-stickies don't change the fire rate at all, so they aren't just strictly better in sticky mode, so on and so forth. But man, even the non-legendary weapons are a bit crazy at times depending on what you get. I got a Maliwan shotgun that shot globs of energy with the slowest projectile speed to man, but god does it hit hard. And it's got an all-fire that shoots a beam tosser, which looks like this, and it's just a rare. Of course, it's not just returning gun manufacturers, I gotta talk about the new peeps on the block too. Daedalus, Ripper, and Order. Daedalus is a bit weird, because their shtick is that they tend to have 2 modes that use different ammo types, like a pistol that can use sniper rounds in their secondary mode. And this mode does have different stats and damage numbers, but I've also seen it capable of having overcharge mode, and I don't know if that's a Daedalus specific thing or not. I'm very much still figuring out their thing. Ripper, however, I do understand a bit more because they're the bandit/COV guns in terms of ammo capacity, but their thing is the charge mechanic to fire at all in full auto. Granted, they still have solid firepower, but the running thing to do with them is just hold down that trigger, baby. That's what I love this brand. In comparison to the lackluster? What the? In comparison to the lackluster Maliwan guns in Borderlands 3, this feels like a better fit for the charge mechanic since it's to be a bullet hose. So it functions fine and they're pretty fun to use. Like, charge kind of sucks, but I feel like in exchange for relatively good fire rate, good power, and really good ammo capacity, they're fine. Speaking of better fits for charge mechanics, that leaves us with Order, which is easily my favorite of the new ones. Just look at this one clip. Oh, oh my god, they're having an intense fight over there.
Well, looks like we got us a city.
Holy shit! This is a good charge. Essentially, Order weapons can be held to charge up multiple shots that get released when you let go of the fire button. This essentially means you can charge up huge chunks of damage into one shot and is just very high damage. Super satisfying to land it. Unless it's an assault rifle which shoots in a burst and feels a bit more lackluster because naturally. Now of course you don't have to charge these shots up. You can do the Jacob's thing of fanning the hammer, which is how I tend to use the ARs myself, but they also apply to other weapons as well if you don't have the time or need to charge up or just need to do like a little bit more damage. Again, really fun, very satisfying to land those shots, one of my personal favorites of the new manufacturers. And if we're talking weapons, I gotta talk about ordnances. As I was using them, I repeated one thing pretty consistently to myself. These grenades fuck, actually. So for those of you that aren't aware, grenades and heavy weapons from Borderlands 3 got overhauled together into ordnances, which are kind of like your big firepower option. They could be either grenades or heavy weapons, and instead of having a ton of ammo for each, they instead have replenishing charges to incentivize using them without leading to just spamming them constantly. And they're shown like a section action skill in the UI, because they kinda are, really. And boy does it work for incentivizing. You see, grenades in the previous game were kinda alright. I think they functioned more as utility than actual damaging options, unless they were called the fastball, or your name was Axon, Krieg, or Mose. But now, due to being lumped in with what was previously heavy weapons, they have to compete with that firepower now, which means holy shit, they actually do damage. And the higher rarity ones can have a lot of effects on them that do crazy things, like, do you want a Torgue exploder grenade that shoots out fire rate bullets and seeking missiles at the same time? What about Maliwan Bind that you can just stick to enemies and shoot out radiation whenever it explodes? Maybe a Jacob's throwing knife that dispenses MIRVs of explosives on contacts. Cause yeah, Jacob's technically has a grenade now, although it doesn't really explode, it's just a throwing knife, but God, the knife is a really fun option. Fast travel speed, precise, it can even land critical hits if you hit a weak spot. It's up there as one of my more personal favorite grenades. Part of it might be the nostalgia of being a melee nuisance on Black Ops 2, but regardless, landing those crits with the fast knife generates a ton of dopamine. Although they're actually in close competition with TDR of all brands. TDR got a hell of an upgrade, because instead of them being essentially the basic bitch grenades in Borderlands 2, they're now satchel charges that you can manually detonate by double tapping the ordnance button. Having that control over when it detonates like that is just... I love it. All this is to say that grenades feel really good in this game. They definitely improved over the previous installments. So what about their contemporaries? The heavy weapons versions are quite different, as they're more like a fifth weapon you pull out and shoot, and they tend to be slow firing but really powerful shots. Some of these are wide energy shots, some of them are like artillery cannons, Torque has like rocket launchers naturally, Mallow 1 does his Mallow 1 ding. Their charges function differently too, as there is a cooldown on whether you fire all of your shots or just one, but the cooldown is reduced if you only fired one shot or anything in between. I can't speak too much on these ones because the game mostly is giving me epic grenades and I've been using those, but the ones I fuss with are certainly some hard hitters. In addition, due to the nature of them being a fifth weapon that you pull out and also slows you, they aren't as immediate as the grenades are, but they're much better at sustained damage output and can certainly chunk health bars, so there's draws to both. I'll have to use heavy weapons more, but so far I lean more towards the grenades than the heavy weapons. By the way, did you know there are two shield types? Instead of being energy based like all the shields have been in all the games, there are alternative armor shields, which function completely differently in comparison. Armor shields are divided into chunks and passively regenerate over time no matter what, so getting hit doesn't delay your shield recharge. However, this process is slow, and it can't normally be sped up by a shield stat, and it only refills one chunk at a time whenever it does happen. In exchange though, while you have an armor shield on, enemies can potentially drop these armor scraps, which can be automatically picked up to replenish a chunk of your shield. In addition, having an armor shield also gives you a passive damage reduction marked on the shield itself. Whether this is always applied or only applies to your armor's damage, I'm not entirely sure yet. There's also some unique traits tied to these shields giving you additional benefits based off of how many chunks of armor you have either up or down, and it's a really nice change for the series. After all, we now essentially have two different shield types that give totally different playstyles. The energy shields that encourage dipping for brief moments to replenish, and the armor shields that make you go Doom 2016 mode and have to approach the enemies to get your quick replenishments. Since I'm playing Arc Knives Rafa, and more specifically the Altered Cabron augment, I've been using the armor shields a lot, and they definitely feel like they benefit the hyper-aggressive playstyle more. Also, there's a new general mechanic called overshielding, but I haven't messed with it too much. From my understanding, it's essentially half of your shield capacity that you can overshield, and it can only be generated from specifically being given an overshield. And it's around for like a few seconds. It's pretty good, but I haven't done much with it. But the brief moments I have done, it does seem like it's a really good sustained option. And the main reason why I haven't done much with them is because they're more tied to Vault Hunter skills, which I can't really talk about much because it's really early on and I have no idea what would be meta here or not. But in terms of what I can comment on, the further branching trees is quite nice for build variety, especially since you aren't restricted to just a branch. It's just that you don't progress in the other branches if you don't build into them. This also applies retroactively to the base tree itself, so you have to get skills in that specific branch to actually proceed to the capstones. Capstones are pretty much entirely tied to your action skill too, so you're committed to at least one branch of whichever action skill you want to use, which I mean, I didn't do that in the first place anyway, but I know some Borderlands 3 builds don't do that, so now it's much more heavily recommended. Right now I'm doing an Arc Knives build with Altered Cabron, which is mainly building up a whole bunch of corrosive damage over time from being in Arc Knives. Doing a somewhat health-based build is a bit weird on Rafa because he seems to have way more shield skills, but screw it, I do whatever I want, and it seems to be doing well enough. I can't really give solid first impression opinions here because whenever it comes to Vault Hunter skills in the new branches system, I ultimately have to get to the level cap and figure out how to build before I can really form an opinion on it all, plus hearing what other people have made and what are good picks, etc, etc. The point is, I definitely cannot give a definitive opinion yet, but I do like the new format. I've been rattling off on a lot of things here, but I feel like I'll touch on one last thing, which is the open world aspect of Borderlands 4. Now, this could have very much have been a lackluster implementation where it's open just for the sake of being open and there's not actually much specific to do, but they have these points of interest speckled around that you don't really know what they are until you approach them. And like, some of it is the standard open world things like safe houses and silos for fast traveling, but there's also other stuff like boss encounters, the survivalist crates, the new side missions, lost capsules that Claptrap essentially harasses you over. And it feels pretty packed with content to explore, and the game also has that fun aspect of I keep getting distracted with the side content helping me. So it's at least doing its job really well. And especially since you can literally destruct your vehicle anywhere you like now at the press of the button, and they go fast too. I feel like my full thoughts on the open world part will come to play whenever I explore more and eventually see about 100%ing everything, but for the time being, I think it's doing its job well. I do genuinely keep getting distracted when I'm exploring, like, oh, well, while I'm here, I might as well search for these things, and then, whoops, all of a sudden I'm on a totally different side mission or safe house raid, especially since you are pretty nicely incentivized to do them. Not that I would personally need it because I am a completionist fiend, but anything you do eventually turns into rewards of new guns and cash and experience. In fact, from doing one set of them in the coastal bone fields, I ended up getting a legendary gun out of it. I think that alone is sensitive enough. And that is me explaining and expressing my personal first impressions and understandings of Borderlands 4. I think the biggest thing I have to say about it, in my opinion really, is that I do really want to play it. I don't feel like I'm in a slog that needs to be pushed through. I'm having tons of fun and wanting to do more, continue complaining about not staying focused on the story, continue finding new and wacky guns to add to my repertoire. I am very much figuring things out as I go, and I'm having a blast with it. If you really want the too long didn't watch, if you can get past the performance and optimization issues, which are pretty bad, I do think Borderlands 4 is shaping up to be a super fun and great game. Of course, these are my impressions, again, and not my official review. Again, I'm not taking a score pro-con list on here. And I will make a more thorough review as time goes on and I eventually beat the game, but yeah, that's it. Now I'm gonna go play some more of this game. See ya.